OMAD, which is an acronym for one meal a day, is a intermittent fasting weight loss approach, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's where you only eat one meal a day in order to lose weight. Some people have suggested that the OMAD approach is one of the best ways to eat, not only because it can help with weight regulation, but because if you look back at our ancestors in ancient times, they weren't always going to have access to food, and sometimes they may only be eating once a day. But as a dietitian, I have many concerns with the OMAD style of eating, and I've unfortunately seen some negative consequences as a result of only eating one meal a day in some patients I've seen. And so today I want to break down the pros and the cons of this style of eating. That way you can make an informed choice as to if this is a style of eating you should consider or if there's a better approach. First, I want to talk about why OMAD works, or at least why it works in the short term. In the short term, highly restrictive diets, including OMAD, are very effective. The main reason being is they are very simple and easy to follow as a result. In this case, it's about eating just one meal a day. It doesn't get much more simple than that. It says you have this one meal and that's all you can eat for the whole day. So there's not very many other factors to focus on. You don't necessarily need to worry about exactly what you eat. You just have to eat that one meal a day. And because it's so simple and so restrictive, not only is it easy to follow, but the high level of restriction means that there's going to be some form of a calorie deficit, which is going to result in rapid weight loss relatively quickly. This can be a motivator for a lot of people when they're stepping on the scale day after day after day after day, and they're seeing rapid weight loss, which even if they don't feel good doing that style of dieting, it will push them to continue doing it because they're seeing the results that they want to see. So despite this diet being one of the most extreme approaches you could take to weight loss, because the results come so quickly, it's honestly easier for a lot of people to stick to because they have a lot of motivation that comes from this style of eating, at least in the short term. And when somebody loses weight doing the one meal a day approach, they still get the same health benefits as they would losing the same amount of weight over a longer period of time. Increased insulin sensitivity, decreased blood pressure, improved cholesterol, improved overall health, likely improved mobility, and maybe even improved strength if they're also resistance training. So you still get benefits from the weight loss associated with eating one meal a day. And based on what I've talked about so far, this diet seems to be like the real deal. You've only got one meal a day, you only plan for one meal a day, you lose weight quickly, and your health improves because of the weight loss. And if you're resistance training, you might even put on muscle and improve your health that way too. But unfortunately, that's not the whole story. And if you've enjoyed this video so far, I make short form style content on Instagram, diving into topics around sports nutrition and weight loss. So if that interests you, I would highly encourage you to go check it out. The link is in the description. And before I talk about any of my concerns, I want to make it very clear that overall, there's very limited research on the one meal a day style of dieting, and even limited research on fasting in general. But there's lots of other research on related topics which help to inform us on if this diet is going to potentially come with any health consequences. And those are going to be mostly what I'm referencing today. But it would be interesting to see further studies in the future examining fasting in the one meal a day style of eating to see if there are any other health concerns that might be associated with following this style of dieting. My first concern with this style of eating is adherence, because although it is very simple and it seems to be easy to follow in the short term, following this style of eating in the long term would be very difficult because your hunger hormones are going up and down throughout the whole day. So to only limit yourself to one meal is, simply put, very unrealistic for the vast majority of people if they're not using some type of appetite suppressant. I think we can all agree that eating just one meal a day is simply unrealistic for the vast majority of people in the long term. So one of the big concerns being that although someone might see weight loss and potentially health benefits associated with that through eating just once a day, if they're not able to sustain that long term, they're just going to gain the weight back and likely be worse off than they were at the start because they dumped all this effort into doing this style of dieting, they've gained weight, and now they end up feeling hopeless after weight regain. Because in order to maintain weight loss long term, you have to maintain the behavior changes you made to lose the weight. So in this case, if eating one meal a day is the reason why you lost weight, you need to continue doing that in order to maintain that weight loss, which again, most people probably aren't going to be able to do. So OMAD is likely a route to very quick short-term progress, but no long-term progress or even maybe extra weight gain later on. But honestly, my biggest concern with this style of eating isn't even remotely related to weight in any way, shape, or form, but the diet quality itself. It's going to be pretty much impossible to get all of the nutrients that your body needs in a day at just one meal. So not only are you going to be deprived of calories, you're going to be deprived of essential nutrients which your body really needs. And let me illustrate what I mean. The average adult in North America weighs about 180 pounds, which means they need somewhere around 130 grams of protein, 250 grams of carbs, 70 grams of fat, and 5 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables. This means that if you're eating one meal a day, you need to eat all of that in one sitting. Do you see why my concerns are starting to grow? And even if you could get that amount of food in your diet, considering that would also come with 30 grams of fiber, that would likely lead to a lot of stomach discomfort because a lot of fiber at once tends not to play too well with the GI tract. And even in an alternate world where you're somebody who can tolerate all of that food at the same time, there are also potential health consequences with eating mass quantities of food at once. When you look at competitive eaters, something that's noted is stretching of their stomach and their intestines from eating such large quantities of food, which can be associated with perforation of the intestine, which essentially means it tears open and whatever's inside leaks out, and it's even associated with gastroparesis in some cases. And although competitive eaters are eating a lot more calories than somebody would doing the one meal a day style of eating, the idea behind it is that it is in theory possible for someone eating such a large quantity of food to suffer similar effects in the long term. So if you ask me, it seems very clear that there are a lot more cons to this style of eating than there are pros. Sure, you might lose weight relatively quickly. Sure, at the start, because of its simplicity, it's very easy to follow. But in the long term, it is highly unlikely that you're going to be able to adhere to the diet. You'll likely regain weight, and you may even damage your intestines in the process. And because of this, if I'm talking to a patient who's eating one meal a day, I try and offer them a different approach, which I'm going to offer you today. This approach is not sexy, doesn't have a cool name, but it works, and it's what I recommend to essentially all of my clients, including those who want to lose weight. First, I try and address mindset. When most people think about weight loss, they think about restriction and deprivation and everything they need to give up. I want people to think differently about their diet. I don't want anybody to think about the things they need to give up, but rather the things they need to add to their diet to make it high quality. Because when you eat a higher quality diet, it's generally going to be lower calorie, which will help with weight loss. It's going to be higher protein, which will help with muscle gain and appetite regulation. It's going to have more fruits and vegetables, which means you're going to get all of the micronutrients your body needs, and that will also help to regulate your hunger because fruits and vegetables tend to be higher in fiber and micronutrients, which help with digestion. And to actually do this, I recommend a plate model and the add, don't subtract approach. The plate model just suggests you use your plate to measure your portions of food to make sure you get enough of what you need, but not too much. And I personalize the plate model based on my individual client. If somebody needs more protein, I tell them to have more protein on their plate. But a general recommendation, which will be suitable for most people, is following Canada's food guide, which uses a plate model. A quarter of your plate being full of lean proteins, a quarter of your plate being full of high fiber grains and starches, and then half your plate being fruits and vegetables, but mostly being dominated by vegetables, especially at mealtime. This will give you protein, fiber, and micronutrients that your body needs to feel full, satisfied, and have amazing energy for the whole day. If you eat a meal which looks like that 3 times a day, I can guarantee you will see weight loss and improvements in your health. And if you're really hungry between meals, snacking is okay. I tend to recommend things like Greek yogurt, which is high in protein, or popcorn, which is very high in food volume and high in fiber. I endorse an 80-20 principle, meaning you eat like that 80% of the time, the plate model and the healthy snacks, and then you give yourself 20% of the time to eat the foods that you actually want to eat and enjoy your diet a little bit more. And when you are doing that 20% enjoyment, I tend to encourage the add, don't subtract approach, meaning that instead of trying to limit yourself when you want to have a treat, whether it be a cookie, a brownie, ice cream, chips, you just add something else to it. So if you're going to have a cookie, maybe you have a little bit of Greek yogurt on the side or a glass of high protein milk, which is going to help regulate your appetite. And by doing that, you'll probably have 2 cookies and a glass of milk, 2 cookies and a bowl of yogurt as opposed to eating the whole sleeve of cookies. It's just a more friendly approach to regulating appetite and fueling your body. That way you get the things that you need without going overboard on the things that you want at the same time. And if you do those things, I guarantee you will see improvements in your health. But I totally get that that's a lot of work, finding the meals you need to eat, the snacks you can have, and how to practice the add, don't subtract approach can be very overwhelming, which is why I offer one-on-one support for people who live in Ontario. If you're somebody who needs extra one-on-one support, read the description. I have a link there where you can book a free, no obligation consult call with me. We can talk about your goals and make a plan for you to get there. And then if I'm a part of that plan, that's wonderful and we can work together. If not, you can take all of the free information I give you and go apply it on your own. I hope this helped. If you have any questions, comment them below and I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can.